Oh hi, it's your old buddy Zoo, and holy crap, it is hotter than hell outside. And it almost reminds me of the summer of 1992. And if you don't remember the summer in 92, one thing that happened was Sega of America looked at a calendar and they realized they had a whole season to themselves. And so they declared the Sega 16 weeks of summer. It was peak Sega. It was peak early 90s. It was irreverent. It was brash. It was the opposite of whatever conservative Nintendo was doing. And it worked like gangbusters. So today I'm doing the only reasonable thing that a guy with a YouTube channel about retro handhelds can do, and that is I'm stealing their idea. 16 Genesis games, one for each week of summer, all played on my RG Arc. And before we're all done, you're going to build your own list of 16 top Genesis games, and let me know about them in the comments. It's not homework, because it's summer. It's more of a drink menu, because God almighty, it's hot and I need a drink, so I gotta go. Bye. I turn this damn thing off, Gary. Where's the button? I had to change my daggum shirt. I got one of those polo shirts that got the vents in the back, so you're not hot. It's too damn hot outside. Anyway, here's the situation that Sega found themselves in 1992. The Super Nintendo had been out for less than a year. Sonic 2 was coming out in November. The console wars weren't just a metaphor. It was a real thing you argued about with your friends at the pool while the lifeguard yelled at you to quit running. And Sega, riding the largest wave of confidence of probably any modern company, launched a campaign called 16 Weeks of Summer. The program was gloriously 1992. Sega partnered with radio stations across the country. They set up demo kiosks at different places where you could just go and play the Genesis for free. They ran all sorts of contests where you could get consoles and games for free. It was all over the radio. A little bit was on TV. Heck, they had folding tables set up. They had a thing at the mall where your mom could fill out a slip to win a Genesis so she didn't have to buy one for Christmas. This was guerrilla marketing before anyone really called it guerrilla marketing. And Sega, they understood something about summer, and they understood something about kids. Summer is when kids have nothing but free time. And time was the battlefield they chose in their war against Nintendo. And, by the way, they had glorified TV commercials that were like hour-long TV shows with 90s teen stars playing Sega. Because if Blossom, if Joey Lawrence could play the Genesis, so could you. And if you want to understand the swagger involved, look no further than 1 year prior in 1991. Sega of America set up all these Super Nintendos and they set up Sega Genesises, and they were right next to each other, and they did a survey. They said, play this, which one do you like, children? And the children responded overwhelmingly. According to Sega's own polling, out of roughly 26,000 kids, 89% preferred Sega. Which 89% is an extremely high number, and it was a survey conducted by Sega, and Sega was one of the systems in play. Was it impartial? Was it accurate? Was it bullshit? Who knows? But that was the entire energy of the company. So that's what we're going to resurrect in this video. Not the radio stations, not Screech playing Genesis, RIP, but the vibe of taking over an entire season, taking over the entire summer. So the rules are simple. The original ad campaign was 16 weeks of Sega, so we're going to do 16 games from Sega Genesis, all on the RG Arc here. Why the Arc? Well, because it has 6 face buttons, a 4x3 screen, and no analog sticks pretending to belong there. It is the most Genesis-shaped object Ambernick makes so far, and at $90 before any sales or coupons, it costs $40 less than a Genesis Sonic bundle did in 1992. The games will be sequenced like an actual summer. You start with schools out, some pool days, some beach days, the dog days, and then the days no one likes to talk about, those last couple days where you're bummed out there's all gonna end. And one more rule, these are my 16. Your 16 might be different, and that's the whole point. You can play along with mine in any order. You can swap some of them out, or you could burn the whole thing down and start from scratch. More on that later. Summer starts on the last day of school, so week 1 will be Sonic. The original, released June 23rd, 1991, an actual summer launch, which makes it the only correct way to start the list. You know the feeling this game is about. It's 3 in the afternoon, the bell rings, and you have 90 days of nothing in front of you. So you run. You don't know where. It doesn't matter. You just run as fast as you can to get this summer. And Green Hill Zone is that exact feeling, but in 16 bits. On the RG Arc, this thing is glass smooth, and the 4x3 screen means you're seeing it the way it shipped. No stretching, no black bars, nothing. I remember going to Hills with my buddy in the summer to get his Genesis, and when we got it back to the house, we played Sonic for hours, deep into the night. It was amazing. And 35 years later, the first zone of this game is still the best first day of summer ever programmed. Week 2, and we're going to the mall, because in 1992, that's where summer happened. God, remember malls? Kid Chameleon is a 1992 release about a kid who walks into a mall arcade, plays a virtual reality machine, and gets trapped inside of it, which is the most summer of 92 premise ever committed to a cartridge. 100 plus levels, 9 helmets, no save system because 1992 believed in consequences, and this is one you rented 3 weekends in a row and never finished. Let's be honest, I don't think anyone's actually finished this game. Week 3 is a beach week, and there's no game more literally summer than California games. Surfing, BMX, Hacky Sack, the Half Pipe. The Genesis port is a port of a 1987 computer game, and it doesn't care, and neither do I. Every event in this game is something you attempted exactly once on an actual vacation before deciding video games were safer. On week 4, your road trip starts, and the road trip is OutRun. You got a red convertible, a coastline that never ends, and a music select screen that lets you choose Magical Sound Shower, which is the single most summer piece of audio ever written for a video game. There's no story, there's barely a goal. You pick a song, you drive into the sun, and at every fork you choose left or right like it matters, and somehow it does. The Genesis port isn't arcade perfect, and I genuinely don't care because the feeling survived the trip. On the Arc, with that 4x3 screen, this is a vacation postcard you can hold in your hand. Ironically enough, the Nintendo Game Boy was probably the best road trip device, even though Sega had the Game Gear, and the Game Gear was technically more impressive than the Game Boy in a lot of ways, mostly because it had a full-color screen. The downfall of the Game Gear, though, was that same full-color screen because it took 6 AAA batteries, and you maybe got 2, maybe 3 hours before they died. Ugh. Speaking of AA batteries, a company called Ostation sent me a battery charging tower sight unseen, and they asked me to include it in a video if I liked it. And it's actually super cool. It has these 2 hoppers on top that can hold a bunch of AA and AAA batteries. You chuck them in there in any orientation, and the Ostation scans them, charges them, and sets them aside in a storage slot for when you need them. It's much better than the old 4 or 8 pack strip chargers, and you always have some fresh batteries available. It is a godsend for handhelds that use batteries, and if you got kids, boy, you're going to be up to your ears in toys and remotes and everything in the house that's going to need some AA and AAA batteries. This thing will pay for itself in less frustration probably in the first couple weeks you have it. This isn't a sponsored thing. They're not paying me for this. They just sent it along, and I thought it was neat. I'll have an Amazon link in the description if you're interested, or not, whatever. Anyway, back to the Genesis games. For week 5, we got a quick one. Taz-Mania, July 1992. An authentic week of release from the actual Summer of Sega promo period. It's a licensed platformer, which of course means it's gorgeous, it's loud, and it's slightly angry with you. This is the cartridge equivalent of summer reruns. You didn't pick it, but it was just on, and you played it anyway. Week 6 is baseball, because baseball is summer. That's the whole argument. World Series Baseball is a 1994 release, so yeah, I'm time traveling, and no, I won't apologize, because I think it's one of the best baseball games on this system, and the behind-the-batter view still feels right today. And while we're at it, let's pour one out for its ancestor, Tommy Lasorda Baseball, which in August of 1989 was 1/6 of every Genesis game in America. 1/6 of the entire library. Tommy Lasorda carried this console on his back for a month, and history barely thanks him. What an injustice. Week 7 is arguably the best week of summer because it's the one where you have nowhere to be. And that week in games is ToeJam and Earl. 2 aliens, 1 funky soundtrack, a randomly generated Earth made of islands, and absolutely no urgency of any kind. This game understood something no other game of its era really did, And it was at the point of summer with your best friend is not necessarily the destination. It's wandering around finding weird stuff together and occasionally getting chased by a dentist. The co-op design was genuinely ahead of its time. The screen splits when you wander apart and it merges when you find each other again, which is a really cool mechanic on such an old console. Find a buddy and play this with them locally. That's not a suggestion, it's basically a system requirement. On week 8, the road trip turns hostile with Road Rash 2. Road Rash 2 is July Asphalt as a video game. Heat shimmer, highway hypnosis, and a man named Biff trying to hit you with a chain at 110 miles an hour. And the crashes are the point of the game because watching your rider tumble 400 feet and then jog sheepishly back to his motorcycle is funnier than most comedies released in 1992. This is the week of summer where everyone's a little sunburned and a little irritable, but in video game form. Week 9 is a quick one because it's the hottest week of the year, and so is this game, Desert Strike, a 1992 release in which it is 97 degrees outside and also inside your helicopter. 16 levels of fuel anxiety, and it's honestly kind of weird that they made a Gulf War game literally 1 year after the real Gulf War ended. The 90s were brash as hell. Week 10 is the Boardwalk Arcade from Vacation, and the cabinet in the corner of that memory is Golden Axe. This is one of the games that built the Genesis, an arcade port that came home in the console's first year, and it still smells kind of like quarters and elephant ears. You got barbarians, a dwarf with anger issues, and little gremlins that you beat up in the middle of the night to steal potions from. Beat-em-ups are summer food, and Golden Axe is, I don't know, the funnel cake. Week 11 is the deep cut. We got Greendog, the beach surfer dude, a 1992 Sega game starring a surfer who is cursed and must skateboard through the Caribbean armed with only a frisbee. Technically, it came out in September of that year, which means Sega's own surfer game missed summer. And honestly, that might be the most relatable thing about it. He showed up late with a frisbee, possibly high. Haven't we all? Week 12 is your rain out week. It happens every summer. You get 3 or 4 straight days of bad weather, and that's what shmups are for. Steel Empire, 1992, a steampunk shooter where you fly a Zeppelin armed entirely in brass. It's gorgeous, it's loud, and it asks basically 90 minutes from your ruined afternoon. Week 13 is the hot nights. Streets of Rage 2 is what summer feels like after dark in a city. Neon, humidity, a Koshiro soundtrack that was making club music before club music was a thing. Yeah, it technically released in December of 92, and yes, I'm cheating. And no, you can't stop me, because the soul of this game is a heat wave. This is also one of the great couch co-ops ever made, which makes it the back half of the ToeJam and Earl thesis. Summer is better with another controller in the room, with another buddy in the room, and the Arc handles this game like it was born to. It's got 6 buttons, and not one of them is wasted. Week 14 is another quick one, and you have Evander Holyfield's Real Deal Boxing, which came out in August 1992. It was released while the man was actually the undisputed heavyweight champion, which means this game is summer 1992 in its original packaging. Every summer has one big fight everyone talks about, and this was the year you could rent it, and no ear biting was allowed. That wasn't until later. Week 15, and you can feel it now because summer, sadly, is starting to die. The days get a little bit shorter. You start vaguely thinking about Halloween and fall, and invariably someone at a sleepover puts on a horror movie. In July of 1992, that horror movie was actually a game cartridge. Splatterhouse 2 came out in summer of 1992, and it was 8 stages of a man in a Jason mask hitting nightmares with a 2x4. It was the game your friend's older brother owned, the one your mom asked questions about, the late August matinee, rated M before M existed. And then week 16, the last one, Ecco the Dolphin. And yeah, this one's a December 1992 release too, my second crime of the video, but there was never another choice for the final week, because no game has ever sounded or felt more like summer ending. The ocean, the quiet, a dolphin all alone in a bay where everything he ever knew got pulled into the sky. It's beautiful, it's lonely, and it's genuinely difficult, which so is the last week of summer. Every kid knows the exact feeling this game is about. The last day at the lake, or the pool, or the beach, when you stay in the water a little too long because getting out means it's over. Ecco the Dolphin is that feeling for 11 hours. It's that melancholy vibe because summer felt like it lasted forever, but also like it just lasted for a couple days. All at once. School starts Monday, but the ocean doesn't care, so swim away. So there you have it, my 16 Sega games of summer. And here's where you come in, because while Sega had radio ads and mail-in stuff and surveys, I don't have that. I have you, loyal viewer, in the comments of this video. So tell me, what are your 16 favorite Sega games? What are your 16 favorite summer games? Am I an idiot? Did I get them all right? Did I get maybe one right? I don't know. You let me know in the comments. This video's done, but summer isn't, so consider this an open invitation. 16 weeks, one handheld, whatever order you want. The world is your oyster. Well, Gary the clock on the wall says it's time for What Did We Learn? And we learned that in the summer of 1992, Sega claimed an entire season with radio stations and folding tables at the mall, and nobody stopped them. We learned that 16 games sounds like a lot until you realize it's one a week, and we learned that Ecco the Dolphin is the sound of summer ending, which I will be thinking about until roughly October 1st. If this video got you thinking, remember to like and subscribe and hype and all that jazz, and let me know your 16 games in the comments. If there's some good suggestions, some thought-provoking comments, I might repost them, I'll put them on the tweeters. We just don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.